Still going with the finger. Just hold it. There's just going to be the sound of breaking glass halfway through.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm now going to call upon my son, Alan Begley, to propose the toast to the immortal memory of Robert Burns. You'll easily recognise him, he's younger than I am. Alan.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Alan Begley, and I am delighted to be here tonight to propose the toast to the immortal memory of Robert Burns. William Burns, Robert's father, was born on the 11th of November 1721 at Clockenhill. Agnes Brown, Robert's mother, was some 10 years younger than him and was born in the Carrick district of Ayrshire on the 17th of March 1732. William was a farmer, and when the couple married on the 15th of December 1757, they moved into the Clay Biggin. The Clay Biggin was a house that William had built, and it had about 7 acres of land attached to it, so effectively it was a small holding. On Thursday, the 25th of January 1759, Agnes gave birth in the box bed in the kitchen of the Clay Biggin. 4 of the couple's 7 children would be born here, but their first, a boy, would be christened the very next day, Robert Burns. Within days of Robert's birth, the family had to move out of the house and stay with a neighbour when it was damaged by a storm. Thankfully, the damage was not too extensive, and the young family were able to move back after about a week, something like that. William was keen that his family should be educated, and for Robert, this started when he was just 6 years old. The family moved to a bigger farm when Robert was 7, and this actually interrupted his studies and his schoolwork. The farm wasn't as close as the Biggin was to the school, and therefore he wasn't able to attend as regularly as perhaps he or indeed his father would have liked. At 14, Robert was already labouring on the family farm, but for at least some of the time his mind was elsewhere. Nellie Kilpatrick, the daughter of a neighbouring blacksmith, had caught his eye, and this led to his first work, My Handsome Nell. The poem opens with a very romantic air. Oh, once I loved a bonny lass, and I love her still. And whilst that virtue warms my breast, I love my handsome Nell. Robert goes on to describe Nell and her virtues throughout the poem, and he said, when he reflected on it in later life, that he was always pleased with it, as it recalls to his mind those happy days when my heart was honest and my tongue was sincere. When Robert was 18, the family moved to a farm of about 130 acres near Tarbolton. This was nearly twice the size of the previous farm, and that of course meant that Robert was involved in a lot more labour. Robert still, however, was keen to pursue his education, and he spent that summer at the school in Kirk Oswald. Now, Robert's time at Kirk Oswald was not purely academic. He also, as he says, mixed with those in the contraband trade and learned how to fill his glass and to mix without fear in a drunken squabble. And I think that Robert, in a drunken squabble, would have been quite an opponent. One description of him in his youth says, he was tall and sinewy, with coarse, swarthy features, his limbs shapely, his knees firmly knit, his arms muscular and round, his hands large, his fingers long, and he stood 5 feet 12 inches tall.
5 feet?
5 feet 10 inches tall.
Oh, 10, sorry, sorry, I missed the 10 now.
Are you alright?
Yeah, I'm not bad. I'm still awake.
You're the only one. Right, so at 5 feet 10 inches tall, he was indeed tall for his age, for the time. The average height at that point was 5'6". He would also, I'm sure, have been physically strong. At 18, he'd already been labouring for some time on the farm, some 4 years, and that would, I'm sure, have put down quite a bit of muscle. If all that was not enough, though, to set the ladies' hearts racing, The description goes on. He had large, dark, lustrous eyes and dark, wavy hair, tied carelessly behind with 2 casts of narrow black ribbon. Now that's there we are. Do you see that? That suggests that suggests to me, of course, that he might have also been a wee bit of a hippie, but I'll maybe just gloss over that. Back in Tower Bolton at the age of 21, Burns was one of the founder members of the Bachelors Club. At the inaugural meeting, Robert was unanimously elected as president for the night. Rules were drawn up, and perhaps the most significant of these was Rule 10, which laid down some of the key qualities a member must have. And this read, every man proper for a member of this society must have a frank, honest and open heart, above anything dirty or mean, and must be a professed lover of one or more of the female sex. No haughty, self-conceited person who looks upon himself as superior to the rest of the club, and especially no mean-spirited worldly mortal whose only will is to heap up money, shall upon any pretence whatever be admitted. Membership of the Bachelor Club was not enough for Robert, and he very quickly also became a Freemason. Around this time, he also moved to Irvine and set up in a flax weaving business with his mother's stepbrother. And it was thought at this time in Irvine that he was introduced to the works of the Edinburgh poet, Robert Ferguson. They think also that this influenced then his desire to write in his native Scots tongue. At 26, a year after Robert's father had died, he met Jean Armour and became a father at this time for the first time. Now, Jean would eventually, of course, become his wife, but his first child was not born to her, but was in fact born to Elizabeth Patten. 1786 saw the publication of Robert's first book of works, poems chiefly in a Scottish dialect, and this proved to be so successful that Robert abandoned his thoughts of emigrating to Jamaica and instead moved to Edinburgh with the intentions of having a second edition published. This dream, this wish, came true the following year in 1787. Burns wrote poetry and songs about many things and drew from his experiences and surroundings. His very first work, My Handsome Nell, was driven by his love of Nell, and love is, of course, a recurring theme, possibly not surprisingly. In the spring of 1786, Robert had an affair with Mary Campbell, who he later referred to as Highland Mary. Shortly afterwards, he wrote The Highland Lassie O. In the song, Robert talks of his love for Mary, and in the final verse makes a pledge to her. She has my heart, she has my hand, by secret truth and honour's band, till the mortal stroke shall lay me low, I'm thine, my Highland Lassie O. Mary died shortly after this, and on the 3rd anniversary of her death, Burns wrote To Mary in Heaven. On the 6th anniversary, he wrote Highland Mary, and the final verse is, and I think this is actually very touching, Oh, pale, pale now, those rosy lips, I aft hae kissed so fondly, and closed for aye the sparkling glance that dwelt on me so kindly. And mouldering now in silent dust, that heart that loved me dearly, but still within my bosom's core shall live the Highland Mary. Right, sack the juggle.
Cheers us all up.
But you are still awake, yes?
Oh yeah.
Now, we've heard in the address to the Haggis that Burns was quite happy making fun of foreign cultures with a fricassee and ragout. In Holy Willie's prayer, the church came into the firing line for self-righteousness and hypocrisy. Burns was very much a nationalist, and my first memory of him and encountering him was at the age of 7 when I was at school in Scotland at Mackenhill Primary. Now, I was in Mrs. Panton's class, and I suspect that Mrs. Panton was also a nationalist. In the summer, the school, of course, typically decamped to the local zoo or safari park, but not for us, not for Mrs. Panton's class. We went to Stirling Castle and Bannockburn, and part of our getting ready to go there was to look at Bruce's address at Bannockburn, Scots Wahey. Now, our first attempts as a class were said to be poor. She wasn't particularly forgiving in that respect, and said that we were in need of more passion. Mrs. Panton specifically commented that we're to remember that we were not going for our messages. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with the term messages, that means you're not going for your shopping, okay? Passion, of course, to a class of 7-year-olds, roughly translate to more volume. And what we actually had, therefore, was still something that was very poor, but considerably louder. I feel slightly guilty because I've been looking at Burns and doing this research on him that I was part of all of that, and I'd like to try, if I can, maybe to write it a little bit by just really going through it now. Now I'm going to read this. We were taught it as a song, but I'm going to recite it, you'll be pleased to hear. So with passion and medium volume, here we go. Scots, wha hae wi Wallace bled. Scots, whan Bruce has often led. Welcome to your gory bed, or to victory. Now's the day and now's the hour. See the front, will battle lower. See approach proud Edward's power. Chains and slavery. War will be a traitor's knave. War can fill a coward's grave. War sae base as be a slave. Let him turn and flee. War for Scotland's king-in-law. Freedom's sword will strongly draw. Free man stand or free man fall. Let him on with me. By oppression's woes and pains, by your sons in servile chains, we will drain our dearest veins, but they shall be free. Lay the proud usurpers low. Tyrants fall in every foe. Liberties in every blow. Let us do or die. Burns wrote as a footnote to this, so may God ever defend the cause of truth and liberty, as he did that day. Amen. Now, returning to love, Robert had an affair with a lady he later referred to as Clarinda. In November 1791, Clarinda wrote that she was going to join her husband in Jamaica. Robert dashed across to Edinburgh, and on the 6th of December 1791, they had their final meeting. Clarinda went to Jamaica, and on getting there had a frosty reception from her husband. He was somewhat cold towards her, and so she returned to Edinburgh. Now, following the meeting, very shortly afterwards, Burns actually wrote A Fond Kiss. Clarinda, when she came back from Edinburgh, didn't actually see Burns again. She managed to outlive him. Burns died, of course, fairly young. Clarinda, who'd been born in the same year as Burns, actually lived to be 82. And when she died, in her papers was found a note, and it said, and it was written on 6th of December 1831, so when she was 72, hold on, I'll just find it. Beg your pardon. The note read, "This day I never can forget, parted with Burns in this year's 1791, never more to meet in this world, or may we meet again in heaven." This is one of my favourite songs, and rather than try and recite it, certainly not blooming well sing it, I'm actually going to call on a somewhat more talented individual in that department, my daughter Charlotte. Charlotte, would you please like to just sing A Fond Kiss for us? Thank you. If you would like to join in, Charlotte is quite happy for you to do so, particularly with the last refrain of A Fond Kiss. All right, Charlotte, you have time. Thank you very much.